Welcome to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast, where today's top influencers and entrepreneurs on the rise share empowering stories and ninja tips to become the fuel that ignites a positive change in your life. Our guests don't simply coast through life. They don't let difficult situations stop them. They set big goals, keep their eyes on the prize, and they're joining us today to share insider secrets you can use right now to step into your power and live your purpose. Now, here's your host, Christy Ruffino.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast. I am really excited to share with you my guest today. I have Christy Lister. Welcome, Christy.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I am really excited to kind of share what your story is, why you're so passionate about this, and to bring awareness to our audience about this amazing cause. Before we do that, I want to let everybody know a little bit about who you are. I honestly didn't know that you are an Illinois state representative, so that's pretty...
Well, it's not legislation type representative government. It's representing the cause.
Blue H.E.L.P. Okay, so I got it now. So you are a mother of 3 children and former wife of a police officer who, after 25 years at the police department, died by suicide in June of 2019.
That is correct, unfortunately.
Yes. Christy is passionate. You are passionate about speaking up on mental health for police officers, first responders, and their families while advocating for changes within the mental health policies amongst the departments. Christy has been working with active and retired officers and their families, providing education to allow them to understand that mental health is not a matter that should be overlooked or shunned as it has been in the past. Christy is a founding board member of a local non-for-profit, the Harvesting Hope Project, that allows first responders and their families to come together in a safe and private rural setting. So welcome again, Christy.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I know excited is kind of not necessarily the word when it comes to what we're going to be talking about. However, given the facts of why I'm here, I am excited to be able to speak out about mental health and breaking that stigma for law enforcement.
Yeah. It is a heavy topic. It's something that I think the general people don't really understand. And gosh, lately how everything is changing in the world with all of the different crazy things. We hear a lot of stories that make us believe things that may not be the truth. There's bad people in everything, right?
Absolutely.
But there are so many good police officers. they have dedicated their lives to serve and protect us at risk, and families. I have friends in the police departments, and the families don't know every day when their loved one goes to work what's going to happen. And then we have this underlying issue, right? The issue that they struggle with that we as the general community don't really understand. And so I know today is going to be a heavy topic, but it is also very exciting because it will raise awareness. So maybe if we could just get this message to one family, even one family. I hope it gets to hundreds and thousands of families, but just one family will make a difference. And so I
wholeheartedly believe that if it helps just one, then that one family isn't going through what my family has gone through. Yes. So absolutely.
So let's talk about what your family went through, because You are passionate about this topic. You have a full-time job, but you are pretty much dedicated to doing this as well. Probably, I don't want to say more dedicated because your company's not going to like that, but you have a why. You have a big why that you want to really spread the word about this. So let's share your story.
Absolutely. So June 17th, 2019, roughly 7:30, 8 o'clock, my phone goes off and I ignored it the phone number that was trying to call me. I ignored it because I'm a mortgage lender by trade, and it was early. It was before I usually answer my phone, but I was exhausted that morning. I'm like, I will start answering my calls at 9. And it was a local phone number. It didn't have a name saved to it, but it did look like a potential customer's number. I'm like, they'll leave me a message. I'm working on something for this person anyway. I don't have the answer quite yet. I ignored it. And then I'm like, I just feel drained. And then I get a text, and it was from the chief of police for Downers Grove Police Department in Illinois. And my first thought was, and I won't ever forget, because he's like, Christy, this is Shannon Gillette, Chief Shannon Gillette. And I'm like, Chief? He's chief now? Because I should put out there, Ken and I had been divorced for 8 years. So, you lose touch with who's who when that's not in your everyday moment. So then I'm like, oh, he's outside my door. And I knew. So to sit there and say how surreal it is, I always had, you prepare when you are in a first responder family, you prepare for that potential of the knock at the door, for the chief coming to let you know something has happened. But you hope and pray that it never happens. Nobody wants that to happen. I get there. I'm like, okay, wait, my kids are not all awake. You need to not come anywhere near my house, or you come to my garage where they can't see you. I will meet you there. And I do that. And they tell me, it's unfortunate. Ken took his life, and, we're here for you, Mom. So I'm like, well, okay. How do I tell my kids? How do I get a hold of his brother? How do I, all those start going through your mind. I'm like, you are not coming in my house until I have all 3 kids up and on the couch. And I went in. Hey guys, I need you to go sit on the couch. Just do it. Get up, go do it. And then, life changed. Life changed in a matter of seconds. And it was truly Father's Day. And he had spent extra time with the kids. And I thought, wow, I was so grateful he'd spend extra time with the kids. And the kids would often, they went out, spent extra time. I thanked him. This is the one thing I am so incredibly grateful for, that a lot of times I'll get in bed and I will have forgotten to text somebody. And then if I know they're awake, I will text. Well, he had been he was really into bicycles, and I've had my Trek bike for 25 years, and he was fixing it up. My daughter was originally going to ride it. She changed her mind. I said, well, let me know how much I owe you for the parts. I will, and I'll get you the money. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. I just have to fix the brakes. I'll have it to you on Monday. So he had told me that Saturday. Sunday night, I'm like, about 10:15, I texted him. I just want to say thank you very much for doing this for me. I greatly appreciate it. Those were my final words. I didn't know those would be my final words. I also, the next morning, being Father's Day, you get on Facebook, those memories that pop up. And I've never done this before, but I sent him a video of my daughter. She was like 4 or 5 at the time, singing Happy Father's Day. And I texted him that. I'm like, I know we're not Facebook friends, but hopefully you can see this video. Obviously, he never got the chance to see the video. And I was the last one to text him. I'm grateful that it was a thank you and not anger, frustration at things that go on, so I was so thankful for that. But I realized he struggled. I realized there were some keywords said to me that day that I started really looking into things and trying to understand. I knew he was struggling because the kids would call me, Dad doesn't want to get up. Dad doesn't want to go do anything, when they were over there. And I'd be like, you have to go do something with the kids. What are you doing? This is your time with them. Go enjoy them. So I knew that he struggled, but I did not realize how deep the struggle was until the chief came to the door. And he was put on administrative leave, I found out a year before, for about 3 months. I believe it was a 3-month period, and he was required to get help, which is fantastic, right? You should get help. Finally, but we never knew that he was put on administrative leave. He did not see the kids anymore. He did not see the kids any less. Went back to work. Come to find out, once he was released back to work, they get released back. There's no follow-up. Obviously, he's still clearly struggling tremendously. And that is where it's like, we have to make a difference. So when the process of doing the funeral, creating the funeral to honor him, and in dealing with the police department, Blue Help, a representative, a liaison, an officer from the local Joliet Police Department asked if he could reach out. And this is where I found out about Blue Help. So it's my mission, we don't want somebody to find out on this end of it. I want somebody to find out before you reach that end. And I reached out and I asked, because you can go onto our Blue Help webpage, and we were talking beforehand, there's an honor wall. And on that honor wall, it honors the officers that have died by suicide. I should note, dying by suicide is not considered a line of duty death, where we'll talk momentarily here as to actually how much of a line of duty death it is, and what is brought on for it. So I'd asked the President Karen, I said, I'm looking at this honor wall and I'm going to put Ken up there and I want to put his picture there, but why are there so many with no pictures? It's hard for people. The departments might not want to admit that there's an issue more often than not. It's hard for the families to accept and understand because we aren't told a lot. We're protected. But I said the only way to make change is to put a face. You can't make change by having a blank face. We have to start putting faces to it. And in order to do that, to make change, you put the face and you talk about it. Because often in law enforcement, really with mental health in general, nobody wants to talk about it. They want to brush it underneath the rug, right? And this is where Ken knew that I talk. Ken knew that if I had a passion and I was adamant about making a change, that I'm going to talk. So I know that he knows that I would give him a voice and his feelings a voice, because he could not. And so often officers just, they can't. They're not. When you are working as a first responder, you are strong, right? You have to hold this strong interior. You have to make it look like you can save the world. It's your job. You're trained to save. You're trained to support your community. But often what's end up happening is, I always tell them, I said, you put your badge on every day and you keep one side of your badge safe, or you think, and let the outside of your badge take the dings. And the inside of your badge is your family and your loved ones. So you're trained to take your emotions away from the situation. That's how you are able to get that job done, right? I mean, could you imagine if you couldn't remove that at that moment? You couldn't do your job. You couldn't be safe. You couldn't help others because it would be so overwhelming. And they're trained to do that. And I think it's a fantastic tool. I'm just as good at it as they are. However, I have learned and make sure that I bring back my emotion to the, after the fact, and not put it inside myself and not deal with it. And that's where a lot of times first responders in general, but officers are, they may go see the death of a child, and they might have a child that age at home. And now they're burying that inside, because if they think about it, the reality is that could happen to their family. And we all know that anyway, but the reality is that could happen to their family. The reality is that if they've had to, pull their gun or pull their taser, that their life could have ended that minute. And those are huge factors. You have all of that they don't know how to process. They're not taught to process it appropriately, because it's not strength. And if you have mental health, that's mental health. Mental health is part of your body, right? We are healthy If you have diabetes, you have insulin and you can live a healthy life. Well, your brain is part of your body. It's the same thing. If you need to take some type of medication to help you, you can live a healthy life and still be able to do your job. So I don't know, this is where all this passion and understanding, because first responders see so much, they deal with so much, and departments over the years, notoriously are, you're fine, brush it off, get back out there and do your job.
Yeah. So I think if the audience can put this in perspective, if we're driving down the road and we see a terrible accident, or even we hit a squirrel or anything like that happens, we play that reel over in our mind over and over again. It shakes us, it rocks our world. It's something that is out of the norm, and then it affects us. And then you have these first responders, whether they're a police officer or a paramedic, whatever they're doing, they're seeing that over and over again every day that they put on their uniform and go to work.
Yes.
And so how can that not affect them? They're seeing humanity at its best, but a lot of times they're seeing humanity at its worst. And that does you have no choice but to internalize it. And we know when we're dealing with stress that we could or should get help. But these are the people that are supposed to be protecting us. And so I can see where that would be a difficult choice for them to get the help, because they feel that they have to be so strong. They feel that they have to be like, be able to just be resilient through it all. But I really think it's impossible. Like, how can you not be affected and do it, navigate through something like that alone?
Exactly. And I look at it as what I told my kids that day: we are all broken, right? All of us. I don't care who you are. We are all broken in different ways. But for some, they've become a little more broken. And for Dad, he was so much more broken than we knew, that he made a choice that he can't take back.
Yep.
And to understand that and to be able to work with that, those are key things. And you don't know. You smell things. We as people that don't go out there, right? The smell of blood, the smell of death, the smell of, a rotting animal carcass, that sticks in your nose, and you remember that smell. And then fast forward for an officer, if they're dealing with that, those are going to become triggers. Yeah.
Yep,
it's going to bring them back to maybe that moment that they had to pick up that child who was bleeding, or or deal with it, somebody who had just taken their life, and that plays over and over. And they do have debriefings. So debriefings really are, this is what it is. We're here for you. However those debriefings look, that's great, but they're not required. Right. And there's no follow through. There's no follow up after that. They offer peer support groups, and unfortunately, which are great, but those are your peers. So developing proper peer support groups, family support groups, those are what we're really trying to look forward to changing.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. Thank you for sharing your story. I know that was, I'm sure, very difficult. Even though you've probably shared it quite often, it's still it's a hard time that you went through, you and your children. And you had to not only deal with it yourself, but you had to deal with the effects of your children going through that.
And his girlfriend, because that's unfortunately where it happens.
Yeah.
So
we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back. And I know you have some great resources to share and some wisdom that you really would love our audience to know. So if you're listening, don't go away. Our commercial breaks are very short, so hang tight. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by the Overcoming Mediocrity Project. Are you ready to share your story in a life-changing book with other success-driven women? Then what if you could use that book to get speaking gigs, podcast interviews, and possibly a new client or two? Wouldn't that be great? Well, watch out, chicken soup. Here comes Overcoming Mediocrity. Our proven system can transform your struggle story into a powerful signature message, and then as one chapter in an Amazon best-selling book. Our process is simple and economical and it will bring a lot of eyeballs on you, your business, and your big message to the world. We welcome you to apply to join our project. Just visit us at overcomingmediocrity.org and click on the apply button at the top of the page. We'll see you soon. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. Christy Lister is still with us, and I know you are all, I'm sure, very touched by her story. But now my goal is for you to be empowered by some of the wisdom, some of the resources that she plans to share with you, as well as some pretty sobering statistics. So, Christy, like if somebody is listening right now that has a family member that is an active first responder in whatever capacity that they're in, like where do you want to guide them?
I want to guide them. One, they're going to notice change. They probably already noticed it, but haven't put two and two together. When officers start struggling, they're going to pick different coping mechanisms. You know, not all healthy coping mechanisms, but they're going to pick some. Some may start spending a ton of money, returning, buying more, returning. Some of them will choose drinking, you know, potentially prescription drugs, cheating, you know, however that coping mechanism is, it's happening. And the family is aware and they're not understanding it or able to put two and two together. So that is a huge sign that an officer is struggling. Your family struggles just as much because you're bringing that home. I always tell them leave one person when you go to work. The officer leaves for the day, one person, and comes back a different person if they've been on a terrible call. So family needs to be aware of that and understand that it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with what they're internalizing. So Blue Help, which is for law enforcement, it's honoring, educating, and oh my goodness, I have a different screen up. Learning and supporting officers and prevention to support officers, their departments, and their family. So you can go onto the Blue Help Illinois page and there's resources. So if you are a family member, you can click on the family resources and we are there for you. If you are an officer looking to seek help, there is firsthelp.net on there and you can click on that and it's going to prompt you for what state you're in, what you need. And it's private. Nobody knows that you're doing it. So it's kept to you and seek help that way. And if you go on, we'll talk statistics because I think that's the most sobering, unfortunate, and unrecognized
So
numbers.
Before we jump into statistics, I want to just reiterate, if you are listening, the links for all of these resources will be in the show notes below. Wherever you're listening, we will make sure that there is access to all of these different links, whether you want to donate, whether you know somebody, like you're a family member, whether you are a first responder and you want to be able to get some sort of support. All of those links that Christy is talking about will be included in the show notes.
Yes, and we should just note that Blue Help is a national organization. So Blue Help Illinois is we have representatives in states now. We've started that process. We started that in January. So Blue Help Illinois, Blue Help New York, that's going to help you gear towards the state that you're living in.
Perfect, because we're in Illinois. So if you're in Illinois, connect with Christy in the Illinois location or chapter. But you know, we have people listening from all over. So the main website, we will make sure that the link is there as well. And if you want to connect locally, you'll be able to navigate to your individual location.
Absolutely. So let's talk numbers just so people understand. Now the numbers when we're talking about these are only the suicides that have been reported to us. If we don't have them submitted to us, we don't know that they're there. Although we are keeping track, you know, we have them now based all the way back from 1979, but often they're not reported. So because they're not reported, I assure you there's probably hundreds and hundreds more number wise, but reported wise. So this year alone, 2021, we're in what, July, end of July, right?
So we already have over half of the year.
Right. We already have 81 officers that have taken their life this year.
just in Illinois?
No, that's
Nationally. Okay.
Yeah, nationally. In Illinois, 3 officers
Okay.
have been reported taking their life this year. 27 states have been affected overall. 13 of these officers have been military veterans. 79 are males and 2 females. I'm not sure why it tends to be more males than females. I don't know if it's statistically the job is more male than female, although I do see it more females now.
Do you think maybe women are more apt to get help? They don't necessarily feel like they've got to keep their male ego in check. They can be more vulnerable, where sometimes men have a harder time with that.
I think so. I do. I think so, because, women tend to talk. They have friends outside law enforcement. They have different types of support systems that maybe they feel more free to open up. Unfortunately, that's the struggle that we have to come. And it's not even all active. There are retired officers. I always say, you may leave the job, but the job does not leave you, unfortunately. And we've had a couple in Illinois that have retired and still taken their life after retirement, because that's been your job for at least 25 years, 20 years. You don't know what else to do. You don't know what to do in the normal civilian society. So it becomes difficult, and what's been eating you away then is now still there because you have not dealt with it. Families are the same. Families sit there and they serve with you. You bring it home to them, but they don't understand what's going on. And families need to know that it's okay, and officers, it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to ask for help. You are still going to be able to do your job. You're still going to be there for your partner, your other officers, whatever your job entails. You can still do that. And there's no doubt that you can do that perfectly. They just have to know that it's okay to get help.
Yes. So one of the things that you mentioned in the break is that if a officer does this and dies through this decision.
It's okay to say it, die by suicide.
Suicide.
I think it's important to say that is, it's not it's a stigma, yes, but it's not one that we shouldn't talk about.
Okay. So if they die by suicide, it's not a line of duty death. And so I know that is has huge implications on the family. So can you share a little bit about that and why it's so important for people to maybe donate money? How does that money support the families? Let's dive into that a little bit.
Absolutely. So when an officer dies by suicide, departments cannot honor them as if it was a line of duty. They cannot give them the full police funeral events. Now, Downers Grove worked with me. They did a great job doing as much as they possibly can. So I greatly appreciate that. And they've honored him in many ways, retiring his badge. That doesn't happen a lot. They don't want, they did have a clause in their life insurance, a suicide clause in their life insurance. So that life insurance did not happen. The kids did not get that life insurance. They can really lose their pension too if they die by suicide. You lose those benefits. You lose all the benefits potentially of what that officer would have gotten when they retire. And that affects families. You think about it. We have families that have young kids. We have families that maybe the spouse, male or female spouse, has been home raising the kids and did not have a job. That's gone. It's absolutely gone. What do you do? And then you're fighting to get the help for him, and they kind of wash their hands of it and move on with life. And that happens often with death in general, right? People support you and then they disappear over time. That's normal human nature, but they will not even discuss suicide. They will blame personal issues, which yes, personal issues do come into play, but the personal issues that tend to end up happening is because of what they're not dealing with from the job. And it's that balance. And these poor families, I'm very vocal. So I've sat there and I made sure stuff happened, but they don't, there's families that can't do that, or departments that just will not hear of it.
So, I mean, let's think about the ramifications of this. We have a family that their world is upside down because they lost a family member, and that alone is devastating. But they can't even like just deal with that and let life happen and deal with that stress. Now they have another whole stress of, now I've got to pay the mortgage every month. I have no money now. That income stream is gone. That life insurance is not going to come through. And now you're out. Sometimes these other, the surviving family is dealing with multiple issues all at the same time because of the way things are. And is Blue Help doing anything? Tell me what the advocacy is on that. And is there anything that can be done?
We're working on trying to get things done, obviously making those changes. We do have some support we have a lot of support for the families, some financial assistance, and really giving them the tools and the guidance and helping them through as best we can. Financially, we're a non-for-profit, so we do as much and give as much as we possibly can, but they are not alone. And that's the key. Even while your officer is still alive, even while you're still married or not married, you're blue family, and family is there, and Blue Help is there for both sides of that badge. And that's often, families, law enforcement families or first responder families, they feel different than the rest of the families. If, the regular, normal, everyday citizens, life is completely different. Your doors tend to be a little bit quieter. You don't talk a lot. You don't have a lot of outside sources because nobody wants to talk about it. And that's where we're coming in. We're supporting them and advocating for that voice, for that change, advocating for policy change for the police departments.
Yep.
In hopes that, this one time a year check-in is not sufficient. I feel it should be every 3 months, because that's kind of the roller coaster that I saw change every 3 months. Things like that. Those will be the huge differences. And making sure, I think the one thing I learned as family, it all fell on my son. He was the next of kin, right? Because he was 19 at the time. Having things, and this is for anybody, I think everybody should have things in order, a trust, a will, so that if something happens, or tragically or untragically, it's expected you have everything in order for your family, because that does help the grieving process, because that's a little bit less stress on the family during that time.
Okay. Well, Christy, I want to thank you for joining us today. And again, I really encourage anybody that's listening that has resonated with this conversation to go to the Blue Help website and learn about the resources and donate. Don't wait until somebody whether it is the actual first responder that has passed or the family is dealing with something like that. Let's do what we can to help on the front side of this, to maybe avoid people having to go through these types of challenges through suicide. So again, thank you. And all of the resource links will be in the show notes below. And do you have any final last comments, Christy, that you want to share with our audience?
I want them to know that everybody is stronger than they think they are, even when asking for help. So strength comes from what's on the other side of fear, the fear of asking for help. I assure you, as difficult as it is to get help, ask for help. It will help you and your family tremendously. It will hopefully save your family unit and save that officer or family member that is struggling.
Yes. Absolutely. So fear, false evidence appearing real. Fear is not something that should stop us. We should face everything and rise. That's my fear motto, is face everything and rise. So yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really believe that this show is going to be heard by the right people. And again, if just one person hears it that needs to hear it, then I think we will both be happy.
Absolutely. And the first responders need to know that their family is stronger than what they think. They can handle and help you. You
Yes.
just have to communicate that to them. You have to be
Yes.
willing to say, I'm struggling today. You don't have to say what the call was, but be willing to say, I'm struggling today, and open that communication.
All right. So this is the end of this show. If you heard anything that you thought was informational or inspiring, I urge you to take action and to take the next step action and share this episode with somebody else. Share it with the whole world. Share it on your social media profile. Share it, because we really want to spread the word about this. I don't think it's being talked about enough. And I really would love to have more than one person hear the show and just save a life and save families a lot of heartache.
Absolutely.
So thanks again, Christy.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams once they've learned the art of mastering their story. Mastering our stories is the key to everything we want in life. Our stories can either hold us back or they can propel us to new heights. We can choose. You can choose. Choose to overcome mediocrity with us. Let's achieve greatness together. To learn more, visit www.overcomingmediocrity.org. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.